Hello, friends and enemies of Hargrave House, and welcome to this. Oh, everyone's waving. Hello. Welcome to this our end of series Talkback for the Between here on the Bad Spot, aka our Jason Cordova lookalike competition. We've got some very strong competitors this time around, so place your bets on who's going to win. I think I know. My name is Fiona. I use she, her pronouns. I've been the producer for this particular actual play. I've had the absolute pleasure of watching these 5 individuals doing some incredible story stuff. I've just been here behind the scenes eating a lot of popcorn. I am a white woman with sort of mid-length browny blondie hair in a ponytail for this, and I'm wearing once again my partner's shirt, which is blue with some beautiful sort of pink flowers on it. I will say the collars have buttons on it, and I hate that, so it's a popped collar all the way. I'm going to hand it over to the wonderful Michelle, please.
Hello, everybody. I'm Michelle Kelly. I played Ms. Cecelie Quinn. My pronouns are she, her. I am a mixed race woman with brown skin, long black hair, and I am wearing a kind of short sleeve button down Hawaiian shirt with the silhouettes of palm trees against a sunset. I would say borrowed from my partner, but the one I wore for the mid-season talkback has made its way into my wardrobe. So we'll say inverted commas borrowed from my partner. And I will throw it to Jess.
Hello, I am Jess, Jewell, pronouns she, they, he, reach in, grab one, don't care. I played Dr. Eveline Mortimer. I am a Caucasian woman with long dyed black hair, freshly cut today, might I add. And I am currently wearing a, again, borrowed from my partner, shirt that is navy blue with pink flamingos on it. It was a choice between this and one with some orchids / like flowers on it, but I think everyone else has reached the flower quota, so I'm happy with flamingos. And I will pass over to Matt.
Hi, I'm Matt. I play Haskell on The Between, and my pronouns are he, him. I am a middle-aged Caucasian man who stands 6 feet 1 tall, just looks generally run down and tired a lot of the time, chasing these reprobates around London, trying to clear up their messes. And my shirt is, I wear my own clothes today in a break from this run. It's a kind of reddy orange Hawaiian shirt that's like way too big, but it's got kind of orchids or lotuses on it. I kind of dig this one. I like this one, but I don't wear it very often. Nice to bring it out.
Nice. Next up is Wren this time.
Hi, I'm Wren, pronouns they, them. I played Phoebe Jean-Baptiste, who was the vessel for our little game. I am a black non-binary person with black and brown twists in my hair that reach to my shoulders, and I am wearing a lovely citrus-themed Hawaiian shirt covered in lemons and, I guess, citrus flowers. I don't know. And palm fronds. It works. It's fine.
It works. And last but by no means least,
Yes, I am Jason Cordova. Any pronoun is fine. I am a mixed race man with short, dark hair, and I am wearing my trademark Hawaiian shirt today, I am wearing a trademark Hawaiian shirt today, one of my 80 plus Hawaiian shirts that I own. This one is, I would say it's a sort of bubblegum pink with green leaves and birds of paradise on it.
Thank you, my wonderful cast, for indulging me in our visual descriptions. Let's talk about The Between. That's what we're here to do. We've had some wonderful questions in for some of the viewers. Thank you so much, friends. We might not get through all of them, and we might not choose to answer all of them just because we're secretive and elusive like that. But the first question I have here, let me get up my little document. So, friends, first of all, you've achievement unlocked. You've finished a season of The Between. That's a claps all around there. That doesn't often happen, in games in general. So I would love to know from the cast overall, how has playing this game affected your views on RPGs and the sorts of games you want to play going forward? I'm just going to throw it out there for anyone to begin.
I'll start. It's me. Yeah, I do play in home games, of course, but the majority of the time that I have to play TTRPGs is in actual play. And almost always one shots. Occasionally, like 2 episodes, maybe 4 episodes if I'm really pushing out there. But this is the first time I've ever done an actual play series that was actually like kind of approaching long form, like had like a longer story, a chance to really explore the characters and build out more of a world. And I loved it so much. It's really made me want to put more of my time into those slightly more like, maybe not like the really long form like open-ended series, because I just don't know if I could find time to commit to that. I missed like 2 episodes of this series even, but more like these limited series that are a little bit longer would be so fun, because I've absolutely loved getting to really get to know both the players and the characters in a way I don't usually get to. I actually just today I like was being a data nerd and like made a spreadsheet of like all the TTRPGs I've played this year. And the Between was very overrepresented just because it's like I've got to play like 11 sessions of it, which I loved. And it's made me realize, oh yeah, I kind of miss playing like longer stories. So that's one thing that I've definitely taken away from it.
I actually second creating like a spreadsheet or like a pie chart of all the games you play in a year. I'm 6 months in and I'm very pleased with what I've done so far. So I want to second that. Please do that, everyone. It's really fun.
It's very satisfying.
Yeah. Any other thoughts, folks?
I will say that sort of before this, I had predominantly played very crunchy, very mechanics heavy, dice rolling, dice pool, like building TTRPGs. We've got a Lancer game on the go at the moment. Wrath and Glory is another one that we've been playing. And while I love a heavy mechanic, this is really, again, the first long form game that has focused so heavily on narrative that I have locked into and felt engaged with in every episode. I can tell you the major beats of the story very easily because, of course, narratively driven, you're building stories, you're not rolling dice constantly. And it has rewired my brain in such a wonderful way. I have so much more respect for narrative build on the fly now. When I see it in other games that I'm playing in, I'm remembering this game in particular and how we're using each other to create prompts, giving each other hints and clues and creating sort of scenes on the fly that were so rich in narrative detail. And I'm using what we did there to build those games at home and create even richer scenes and richer descriptions. And it's such a lovely little tool. It's a lovely way to assess past and future, and how do you think your character would feel about this? How would they have done this in another life? And you know, it adds so many different perspectives to other games you're playing. So yeah, with regards to how I'm going to start playing RPGs like going forward from like a narrative standpoint, it's going to affect everything I play, and I love that.
You can put paint the scene in everything, right?
Yeah, exactly.
There's nothing about paint the scene that's like restricted to.
There is something utterly bizarre about playing a Warhammer Wrath and Glory campaign and being like, guys, let's paint the scene.
Let's paint the scene.
I was GMing. I was GMing on a stream like last month, and Wren messaged me within seconds because I said paint the scene, and Wren was like, "Ah!"
I was like, Michelle, I see you. I see you.
I was so seen.
No, but I think to echo what Jess said, I have, when speaking to a friend of mine, because I update them every time something happens in the session, I've affectionately referred to this as spooky game. And just the amount of roleplay, because everyone kind of goes off on their own, it's something that doesn't really happen. I'm so used to in games like needing the party to be together or have at least several people be together, but in this game everyone gets to have like their own little moments, and the intercutting of scenes is something that from the first episode really stuck out to me as something that, oh, you can do that. That's a thing that you can actually do, and it works really well in not just scenarios like this, but in other things as well. You can intercut in between different characters having their own solo moments and have that just narratively combine into each other's scenes as well. And just the concept of the unseen just blows my, just like having something else happening that kind of mirrors and juxtaposes and trying to find ways to mirror that as well is just, honestly, so many aspects of this game just left me completely flabbergasted. I loved so many things about it, and not just paint the scenes but also just giving characters their own moments and letting them shine and letting them like have their own little things and then coming back together is really something I'm gonna try and implement in other places.
I forget how I forget how novel the unseen is for people who encounter it for the first time, because I've lived with it for years, right? Like I invented it back in 2018 or 19 or whatever it was. And so for me, it's like kind of not an old hat thing, but it's like, okay, yeah, you know, I've the unseen, fine. But then like I whenever I get to play it with a new group, I'm always reminded like, oh yeah, role-playing games don't generally do this. They don't have like scenes that are like not connected to the story that you're doing strictly for thematic purposes, right? So
But
yeah,
it
that's
absolutely engages a different part of your brain.
of your brain.
It's-
Yeah.
You're trying to think of how to link it in so you can get those sweet experience points. And then also you're listening to everyone else's story and go, well, how can I connect this? And then how can I make this visually and thematically thrilling at the end and in the middle? How can I connect everything? And you do feel like a mastermind. I think there was a phrase at one point, someone was like, I'm Sherlocking. And I really, which I've just sort of gone, we kind of are, because we're connecting all of these like different clues and little nuggets of information to create something masterful at the end. And that's what the unseen does. It's another layer to the puzzle that feels very satisfying when it all comes together. So yeah, kudos, absolute kudos for bringing that to the light.
I love to hear that. My answer to the question, the original question, I have a different perspective, obviously, as the keeper and the creator of the game. But one thing that I knew about my game always is that it came up in an online role-playing game environment, right? Like it was created in the Gauntlet, which is a with a couple of small exceptions, a strictly like online play community. And so I know that it's built for online play, or it's particularly good for online play, because that's how I mostly play it, right? But one thing that I was reminded of in this campaign with all of you is the game is also very, very good, particularly for actual play, right? So, which I think is a slightly different thing than just like an online informal like kind of game with your friends, right? Or even like the kind of gaming we do in the Gauntlet, which is not necessarily recorded for like entertainment purposes, right? So in the actual play context, and what I was really happily reminded of playing with you all is the game does have like lots of moments, kind of like what Wren was saying, lots of moments where you get to sort of spotlight and watching you all kind of like perform your Janice Mask and perform the unseen and the different like narrative prompts. It was beautiful to see, for one thing, but also it was it kind of was like a reminder of like, hey, your games are particularly good for AP. And so if you're watching this and you have a stream and you're thinking about running a new game, give a CFB a try. So yeah.
I won't go too much into how this has changed my perspective on gaming, because I made a video that got me into this trouble in the first place.
You also put the actual play together, so yeah.
But what I would say is that like I really enjoyed having already gone through how you all felt encountering all of these unique mechanisms for the first time, or perhaps, you know, not in this like this way, and seeing you all get them was just an absolute joy. Because the thing is, when I cast you all, like I kind of knew you would get it, but like we had a brief like half an hour meeting, didn't we, before the first session, where I was just like, here's, I don't want to say too much, we can't say too much, we're not allowed, but here's kind of what's gonna happen. And I remember saying some stuff and I kind of thought, oh man, I really hope these guys gotta get this, but I knew you would. And as soon as like the first paint the scene came up and the first unseen came up, and I think when like seeing you all realize like and feel the way that I felt, like just 8-9 months ago when I experienced it for the first time was actually like really nice. I just felt like I'm spreading the CFB pill everywhere. People are changing their brain chemistry because of this, and I'm just really thrilled that it came together.
It is very much like you just do it. You have to be there. I always think that of RPGs in general, of like, oh, I just need you to just try it, and then it's like, and now you are addicted in role playing games, which is always good. The next question I have on my list. So, how much behind the scenes discussion did we have as a group with the scenes or the direction of your particular character's story? We've got some other like sort of incidental questions, but I'll just put that there. How much discussion did we have about like where the direction of the our story was going to go? Do we think?
I'll just chip in here and say the one thing that I'm really going to miss about this AP being over is receiving the cryptic messages on a Thursday morning. No context, just saying, because like we're not supposed to talk about our backstories and we don't want to plan anything. So I just get a message from Wren or something that's like, I want a vulnerable scene. And that would just be kind of it, or there'll be maybe a little more. And sometimes Wren would tease something that never came to pass. Like, do you remember you said when I use the map room orrery, I might bring back a Haskell, but Haskell is Miss Jean-Baptiste Butler from the future or something? And I was like, okay, sure.
Is that a conversation you two had?
I didn't know what would happen.
That's such a good idea.
No, because I knew that I wanted to bring someone with me into the. I was like, I'm not going into this map room by myself.
Yeah.
So
I think that kind of answers the question. Like, we've had little conversations between one another, but as a group, we haven't discussed like, you know, in depth each other's backstories at all.
Well, you're not allowed to, right?
No,
Yeah,
exactly. But like, that's very much like that's something you were considering. That's lovely. And it almost adds, it's like another Janice Mask, another thing in the future, another potential path at some point. But like, we have all checked in, I think, at least once with each other to be like, in this scene, I'm thinking we do it this way. But then no specifics to keep it safe more than anything else, and make sure that everyone's comfortable with what's happening with some of the decisions that are being made in that. But generally, we've all been pretty light on communication, really.
Yeah, I had very few conversations like that. Like, as far as between keeper and players, I think the only one I can think of is Michelle and I talked about like sticking the landing, or like kind of the epilogue of Ms. Quinn, just because there's a sort of like timer aspect to the undeniable playbook that we weren't going to be able to get to in the amount of time we had. So we talked about that briefly, but even then we didn't really like play it out the way we originally talked about. We ended up just playing it out the way it kind of played out. So yeah, the answer is like very minimal. That was all us.
Which is then very interesting when you think of stuff like that breakfast scene. And I mean that breakfast scene where I think all of us were like, oh, and I of course it didn't feel very planned, but it felt very dramatic and in the moment and very engaging as a result. And obviously, again, we've got our own lines and veils and safety tools and stuff like that. But I remember sitting here watching it, going like, I don't think this is planned. And getting really comfortable and watching it. So it's surprising. And again, I know this amazing system encourages you just to do sort of stuff about, and again, as you said, not share anything. With that in mind,
that breakfast scene in particular, I think that morning, did we all say what's everyone doing today? And I think, I'm just going to go and deal with this case, you deal with that case, or whatever. Yeah. And then someone said, should we have breakfast before we go as a group? Because that was the first scene all four of us had ever been in together. Yeah. I think
it was the first time that Cecelie and Haskell had been in a room together.
Yeah, because I said I want to do a scene with Haskell. I want Haskell. But I haven't met him yet on screen. Like, I'm sure we've met, but we haven't actually. So we were like, oh, we should try and make sure we're in a scene. And it was like, well, Haskell wants to speak to Mortimer. So we're like, well, should we just do a breakfast scene? Yeah. And we didn't plan what it was going to be. We just said, let's do a scene. And I think for me, that was all it ever was in terms of like preparing. As occasionally I'd message someone like, I want to do a scene. Is that cool? Does that fit into what you want to do for the session? And that was about it.
Well, indeed, just asked if there would be hollandaise. No, just ask it.
I was going to say, in the rules of the game, you the keeper is encouraged, and I guess by implication the players as well. The keeper is encouraged to like kind of go around the table and find out what kind of scene everyone is interested in having, right? Like, what kind of scene do you want? And then you sort of like say, okay, now that I know what everybody wants to do, let's do this scene, you go ahead and frame it up. So the game has a lot of built-in like talk like that, but you're certainly doing it in the moment, right?
So speaking on that, was there any, I'm quoting here, was there any really juicy background material that anyone wanted to get a chance to reveal, or was there just not enough time or an opportunity to get to? So I know there was a little...
It was the Coven,
Coven.
right? Yes,
Yes.
that to me was the one, like the big, like, I really would love to see Ms. Jean-Baptiste in the second season because we did not get to see the Coven.
I wanted Miss Quinn's secret. I wanted that so badly. I wanted to see how that would play out because imagine if that had been used in the in the finale against Mrs. Brathwaite. Like that, there was so much potential for it in any direction. I was like, oh god, please! But like, I'm really happy with the way everything turned out. But my god, it would have been so good.
The thing about that is Miss Quinn's secret evolved week to week every time we played. I never settled on it until like about maybe 6 hours before. I was like, I have to pick something. One of these has to be the thing. So that's what happened there. I had a few ideas. I'm not gonna get into it. It's fine.
I didn't really have that much I left on the table. I had an idea for a custom move that I was going to kind of go down, and I know that Haskell had lots of little weird meetings with people who were kind of his contacts around town, and I had this idea for a custom move where every time I met a person, I had to explain who they knew me as and why, and then roll, and I either got a clue or they wanted some reparations from me, but I didn't quite get the chance. But I feel like that kind of came out in play anyway. And then other than that, I had what I thought was an amazing scene in mind to have with Rabbi Solomon, and then Jason immediately killed her. So
I was distraught at her death. Genuinely, I was like, "Oh God, we've got like a full ally here." And then, could have done with more of that. But I liked the fire it put under, well, Mortimer's ass in particular. But it was very convincing. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I love Rabbi Solomon. But then that's good. Sometimes it's good to love an NPC and get them taken away because that, it fuels the story. I mean, I will say there's more to Cecelie's story than what we saw. I knew there was a certain amount of it. I wanted to make sure we saw for the arc to make sense for this particular story, but there's more to her, but I'm not telling you.
Well, and I'll throw in also that like this new edition of the game, which you are the first group to play it, this new edition of the game, you are not meant to tell the entire Janice Mask in one mastermind arc, right? Like it would be really difficult to do unless you were just intentionally like just trying to like burn up really fast. Like, and you can play it that way, certainly, right? You can just like bump up 7 to 9s, right? Or whatever, bump up a 10. But in general, the pacing of it should be to where it takes about 2 mastermind arcs to get the full story of the character. That was a really intentional part of this new design. That I wanted to like really emphasize. There's lots of ways to like keep the characters in the campaign longer, right? Whereas in the old edition of the game, they were pretty much one mastermind and done. Like you could keep playing, but you'd have to have like a new playbook for the second season, right? And that's great also. So you have some choices, like, but I think my intention is that we don't learn everything right away, right? Like we get just a little bit, and then we maybe down the road we get more. And I think that makes it all feel more. I think it like gives the setting a lot of like implied depth and gravitas that I want it to have, So
with Haskell's masks as well, I think I mentioned this a couple of episodes ago, that like half of them are to do with his past and half of them are to do with the start of his relationship with his employer, with Dr. Mortimer. I think actually like 4 of the 7 masks of the past are about Dr. Mortimer. And when we did, I can't remember what the mask was, but it was a threat mask, and it was the one where I was bringing you breakfast. It's the first appearance of Hollandaise in the in Hargrave Law, where that was kind of a mask I had in mind for the Dr. Mortimer stuff, and just kind of reuse some of that. And when I'd done that, I was like, well, hang on, with the way this is pacing, I can just do the story of my past, and when I get to unmark the masks, I can do it again and add, you know, the different perspective on it. That I didn't really need those other masks. And like Jason said, you know, if Haskell was coming back for like a longer story, then that's a whole other, you know, a season arc that you can kind of get out of that. There's just so much story there.
Well, in every playbook, and even indeed, like even on from the keeper side too, all the threat sheets and stuff, there are like so many buttons to press, right? And like you don't have to press them all, right? Like you just press the ones that interest you, and it's going to be great, right? Like you're still going to get a good story out of it. And so you may be the kind of person who really wants to get your backstory done, and so you're really leaning on the Janice Mask pretty heavily, or maybe you just like really gravitate to like the core move or like one of the moves on the sheet, and so you kind of frame your whole character's thing around that move, right? And no matter like kind of where you, no matter what on the sheet intrigues you, there's enough to get some story out of it, you know. And I think that's what's kind of great about it. And I also think it adds to replayability too, because like from the keeper side, in addition to the fact that like the mysteries are you're gonna get a different solution every time, there's also stuff on the keeper sheet that like that you can't use it all, right? Like there's no way to like use all of the locations and all the characters that are there. And so you can kind of play, you can run the Limehouse Lurker like 20 times like I have and still kind of get something out of it every time.
I think that that was brought home by, there was a conversation in the Gauntlet Discord, Jason, I think you were involved with, where you said, I think is it the teacher's husband in the Limehouse Lurker threat? You were like, I've never used this guy.
Literally never seen that guy in a game, and he's there. And I one day would love for the dead teacher's husband to come into play, but it never happens. So, yeah.
I think the only thing that I didn't get to use is sometimes we pick things on our playbooks and they just don't come up. And I think I chose a room. I chose a room that
room.
that didn't get a chance to come up just because of time constraints.
It was time constraints, and sorry not to cut you off. It was time constraints, and also like I was still sort of in the middle of writing that, so there was like I wasn't 100% sure how it worked yet, so that was also part of it. But, yeah.
It's so fine, but I was just like, but what does it do? It's fine. So I would have loved to see what that thing is. So
yeah, the only reason why I didn't like swear you off of it when you were picking it is you still get like a stat bump on that, I think. Yes. You get a stat bump in addition to the room. So it was like, well, at least they're getting something there. It's not like, you know, it's not like a complete wash. But I kind of knew when you picked it, I was like, okay, the ritual room. You have like 10 ideas for how this is going to go, and you probably should pick one so that we can do it for the bad spot, but then
it's completely fine.
That's amazing. Well, speaking of masks, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. I would love to know from everyone, what were some of your favorite masks, sort of like descriptions that we got, and were there any masks that you were looking forward to? We kind of talked about it, but you were unable to use at any point.
I think I used the mask that I considered most important for Phoebe in this like short arc, which was the encounter with the demon. That was the one that I had thought about the most when I first looked at this. So I'm like, this is going to be like a very defining moment for her and who she is and what she's dealing with. So that one I spent the most time on. So I think that one was maybe my favorite. I think my favorite to listen to, the first time Cecelie got to do a mask and it was the play, I was like, we're going to see her backstory in the version of my mind is blown. It's incredible.
Thank you. I was very proud of that. I toyed with having all of her Masks of the Past be scenes from the play, but ultimately I felt like for this particular story there were things I wanted to get across that it wouldn't have worked doing it that way. But it's already, like you were saying with like replay, I already want to try a version where like the masterpiece is a play or something, and all of the masters of the past are depicted through the masterwork. So I think that's really cool.
I'd
It was
love
really
that.
fun. It was
Yeah.
really fun to do it once, but for this story, it wouldn't have worked, I think, with what I wanted to convey to do that. But it was fun doing at least one that way. It was super fun.
I co-authored another game called The Silt Verses, which is based off of this audio drama podcast.
I played it. It's very good.
Oh, good. I'm
Recommended.
glad. Yeah. Well, there's one
With
of
the creators of the audio drama.
Oh, awesome. That's great. I love it. Yes. So we have a playbook in that, though, that's not part of the core playbook set. It's one that came later, but or I think, I don't remember. But in any case, it's a playbook that like uses like you actually do like stage direction and stuff like in your flashbacks and stuff, because they worship this god of like this like theater critic god. So it's and so when you said that, it kind of reminded me of that. But it actually kind of something that I really love that you all did, and this is kind of just a comment on everyone's kind of Janice Mask, is I could tell that you all took very seriously my session 1 instruction to like go do homework and read through your Janice Mask and like prepare ahead of time. I would tell that to any group, not just an actual play group. Like that is how I tell the players to prepare every session. And I just love that you all did that. Like it was really clear that you all like thought really hard about like what each of those elements meant. But you still like, I could tell that you still had flexibility. Like I could tell you were adapting your original ideas like to wherever the story was in this moment. And so that's how I intend for the game to be played. And it was really lovely to kind of see it like so done. But also like kind of going back to what you're saying, like about the like, you know, maybe like doing like, you know, like doing it as a play, Michelle, like you like, I think it would have been super cool, like to write the flashbacks that way, right? To like write it like stage directions, to write it like, you know, to kind of make it almost like an artifact. Something that is in the new edition of the game is all of the playbooks have like a bunch of like advice from like me and like, you know, like here's some ideas for playing this character, right? And the person who never plays. And one thing for the American, which is not a playbook that we got to see this time, but the American playbook has this moment where like they're meant to like they find a letter from back home and their parents are like, you need to come back home immediately, you know. And I've actually like put in the directions of the game like you should write that letter, like show up to the session with that letter in hand, right? Like write it, like you're gonna love that and the table's gonna love it, you know. So I think anytime you can do things like that, I think it's pretty spectacular, right? It's just great stuff. So good.
I'll absolutely jump in and sort of say that one of the masks that sticks out to me was the look behind, or the look into like another universe. I think it was the Fae threat that mask. What was that mask's name?
It was either Mask of the Sun or or it was the Spider Fae one.
I think it was the Spider
They both
Fae.
do kind of the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. But because it was Haskell's the depiction of the unicorn in like a fantasy land, and then all of us looking into the deepest, darkest parts of ourselves. But
Haskell saw a unicorn because he's a replicant, and I've seen Blade Runner too many times.
Best answer.
What I loved most, I mean, kind of without going individually into the masks, but like I really just felt like they were the showstopper moments, and you all did such amazing work with them. Like Wren's just like incredibly powerful and evocative, and just beautifully described. And then Michelle's were kind of nested within this other kind of layer of meta text, and then Dr. Mortimer's were this kind of just stark contrast from someone with their, you know, up to their elbows in guts and sawing people's feet off, to like the most tender kind of descriptions of your potentially happy past. And having seen you happy now at the finale, I didn't like it very much, but I just loved those moments. I just lived in this game for those moments, and kind of just really wanted to see as much of your playbooks as I could, and as much of those masters as I could, and I just never felt like any of them were like perfunctory. And by Jason setting the expectation at the start, they're like, at least have a think about it, guys. You know what I mean? Have a think about where you're going. And I did that. Like mine changed minutes before I did them, like in sometimes, and like completely altered in kind of bits. And I learned Russian 5 minutes before my first one. I still have the post-it note on my screen of how to pronounce it phonetically. And they're just such a powerful tool to deliver exposition and backstory. And we've all played in a million trad games where like you're relying on the GM to shoehorn a bit of your backstory you've given them on a short thesis at the start, like 6 months ago, into a story that no one's going to pay attention to. Well, everyone's paying attention during the masks because you want to be, because that is the meat of this game.
Yeah, I have to say, I would normally like all of my games, like I always kind of write my games as a keeper, and something that I'm always thinking about is like, how can I push more of the storytelling work off onto the players? Not just because that's more fun and a more engaging way to play a game, but also because I just want to be lazy sometimes and be entertained by the players, right? And in this campaign, I actually often felt a little jealous during my lazy keeper moments, because like for the unseen especially, I was like, like normally I love this. I get to just sit here and watch the players play and kind of enjoy what they're doing. But I so love what they're doing that I'm jealous that I don't get to be in there doing it with them, right? And so on the couple of sessions when we only had 3 players and I got to be in the unseen, I really like treasured that. I was like, oh, I get to do the unseen, So I think
your
that's
bathwater description, where the guy drank the bathwater.
Yeah.
It viscerally stuck in that. It was awful and fantastic. I loved it.
But I think it was just like a testament to like how well you all did with it, because like normally, which is not to say my other groups don't, but like normally I kind of like love that I get to kind of sit back and kind of be entertained a little bit, but in this case I was like, oh, I want to be in there, so yeah.
And then following on from that, was there any point that people were tempted to put an end to their character with a particular death scene from a bad roll, rather than taking a mask and rewinding it? I think this is a very interesting thought, really, because obviously there's certain times when you're like, well, the mask is coming on, and that's that. But yeah, was anyone tempted not to?
I think the tally was me and Wren both died 3 times, I think. Jess once, and Michelle not at all. Am I right in thinking that?
No, I died once, I think.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So, somebody turned into a spider monster.
The
spiders all over me.
It's gonna explode.
So if the spiders didn't kill me, then my severe arachnophobia would have. So
I wasn't tempted to die at any of those points, just because there was more to say. And actually, there was a comment on the penultimate episode where D.I. Fairweather splatters my brains all over the oven in the kitchen, and the person who was watching the video, wrote the comment and just said, I had to pause it because I genuinely thought you were dead and forgot there were masks in the game. It was like, Haskell can't go out like this. And then, he was like, I wondered why you were so casual about being shot in the face. But I didn't have any of those moments where I kind of felt like I would go out, but I did have it planned that I was going to mark the blood-soaked portal in the finale. Kind of whatever happened, unless I rolled a 12 or whatever, just because I kind of wanted that epilogue scene that we got anyway, but because we rolled really well on the solution, we didn't actually get to roll any dice in the finale, so it worked out anyway. But that was the only kind of this is me going out thoughts that I had.
I have to say, I love it when, like, I don't always love it when players like mark, like, take the miss and like retire their character early, because sometimes it just feels like it can, you want to know more about that character, right? But I have to say, I have been in games where you have like a player who's like very confident in their storytelling and in their mastery of narrative beats, and they're like, no, this is the time that the character is dead. And it's always very shocking and very satisfying in those instances. So yeah, it's just another button to press, right? Like it's the option to not press the button, right? So there's something about like the confidence in doing that,
I do feel very strongly that like a lot of the best TTRPGs are ones in which a character cannot be retired without the player's consent. Like, you can't just have a bad combat situation and whoops, you're dead. And I like that about the Between, that like, yeah, maybe you have a bad roll and you die, and you can choose if that's your death or not. And I think that that's the really powerful thing, is getting to choose. because you've got to make sure that you've told the story you want to tell. It's no fun otherwise. it's just living in dread otherwise, for me at least.
There was a minute, I think, where I considered retiring Eveline if she hadn't brought, or if she'd been forced to roll Etienne to life and had failed. Luckily, we managed to gather all of the parts with a little, sort of ad hoc collection here and there. Thanks for the rogue kidney. But it's one of the, with the mother. The mother is so geared towards building the child, and it's borderline obsessive with how much all of those moves center around being near a corpse, hiring people to be near a corpse, and take things from a lot of the stronger moves that the mother has is just to be near a corpse and then 2 clues immediately, pretty much. So that was pretty much everything that she was doing. If she had, Eveline spent a lot of time building the child. And everything from like the scenes that she was doing with like Godfrey Rathmir's head and stuff, right? Everything that that happened, I was conscious of that. With all of that effort, if I'd been forced to roll and it hadn't gone my way, and also with Eveline sort of being so like all of the flashbacks being so about love and that tenderness lost in the past and having a daughter, losing a daughter, right? I think that would have genuinely been the moment she'd go, no, life is simply not worth living, and gone through the blood-soaked portal. So it was a possibility. So if I hadn't, and that had gone wrong, that would have probably been where Mortimer went. But that was the only sort of consideration I had for it then. And then at the end, they never found her body, so who knows if she's really dead. But like, it's a very nice move to have as an option and to have control over. I really enjoy that from like a player perspective, for sure. But yeah, big fan of it.
I have to say, as a tangent, I was so pleased that you were okay with me playing Etienne as this like monster, basically. Because I appreciated the irony of it, and I intuited that you would also, and so I think that it was nice to know that like by the time we got to session 10, right, that I was happy that like I was able to like kind of intuit that you would be into the irony of the whole situation, right? Because it was deeply, deeply, profoundly ironic, right?
It hurt so badly. But there was a moment where when you said like, oh, and then Etienne does this, and I was like, the voice of Etienne, oh, I can't wait to hear it. Like, what is he? What does he sound like? And he just drooled everywhere and sounded, just did the, and I was like,
I would like to think it's the ghost of Dr. Gastrell getting back at you as well.
Yes!
So.
Terrible, awful, but I wouldn't have had it any other way. It added a whole other level again as a player to have that sort of agency of what you've created removed. Genius, loved that. So yeah, Etienne sort of added again another level and layer to the mother and how that character can react to stuff. It was really fun.
It definitely felt like, what do you think will happen if you don't succeed? And you're like, well, the child doesn't come to life. And he goes, oh, it's much worse than that. It does come to life, and it's Jason playing Etienne.
I will say, so I love melancholia and sadness, and one of my favorite things to do in games is die. However, I think with Phoebe, it was just so, I had kind of set up in my mind that she was probably going to die, and then it kind of shifted, and I was like, oh, maybe she doesn't want to die. She has just accepted that she's going to die, but that's not actually what she wants. And I was just like, great, now she's got to live. We got to actually make it through the finale. Oh God. That was fun to flip it up for me in a bit.
Then I've got the next question. I probably could predict what it is, but maybe I'll be surprised. I would love to know what everyone's favorite threat was, and if there was any themes or any patterns that we discovered along the way.
There was one theme that we
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, there was one theme. Did you know what our favorite threat wasn't? It was the goddamn St. James's Street ghost. It was the fucking old baby again and again and again.
I enjoyed that. I was excited.
No!
Old baby vampire, old baby ghost, old baby, old young child of the old baby.
I was half expecting Theodora to unmask as an old baby in the finale. In terms of favorite threats, we never played my actual favorite threat, which I was sad at Cromwell Gardens. And I was sad about it, but then also, like, you know, I've already got to do it once. It was great. But I really loved the Nutcracker because two reasons. One, I'd never played that or been involved with it, running it or anything. Two, I didn't know it really at all. I'd seen a little bit of it on the Shadow Society, but didn't really remember that much about it in detail. And then lastly, because Haskell didn't really have much to do with it. He was kind of in the background. And I think those threats are slightly more enjoyable because you can kind of take a back seat and watch it unfold. And then you get to chip in with some gibberish in the solution. But other than that, I wasn't really involved in that. I loved watching you all play that out. But yeah, I think that was my favorite.
Mine was the spider silk seamstress, obviously. I literally went to my partner before that session recorded and was like, I'm gonna go play my game. I've got a dinner date with a hot fairy. And then afterwards, they're like, how'd it go? I was like, real bad. But what else could I expect for it to go real bad? I just liked that one a lot because it felt like a little bit of a change in direction. There were no old babies. So it was a little refreshing in that way. But I really liked any time we got to interface with the Fae. Like, I loved Merricat. I loved that room in Hargrave House that was the ballroom. Like, all of the Fae stuff really fascinated me. So I was just excited anytime we got to interact with that.
He wasn't really a threat, but I loved Gastrel. I loved everything that Gastrel was and wasn't, which was a sane and well man. It was like a little just additional treat to have his entire input on everything. Such a weird and brilliant idea to have him sort of as like head of the mortuary. I really, really enjoyed Haskell dispatching him, leading us down into the Roman baths, which then became a pretty key point of everything else. Again, so, but, you know, part of threats, but I think it just goes to show how flexible the game can be and accommodating and in elements like that. It doesn't have to be a threat. It can just be someone doesn't like that you can go and kill, apparently. Like, that's it. That's how it works. It's so flexible. You get a little bit for everyone and everything. So, but yeah, particularly enjoyed Mortimer and Haskell's scene in the Roman baths there, just with one of us turning our backs individual times. That has sort of solidified in my head. So yeah, not a threat. Technically a threat, not a threat. Just a bad, terrible man who likes corpses.
I think my favorite was actually the St. James's Street ghost, and for two reasons. No, because we didn't finish it. And so it was always just a thing that was kind of hanging over, like, what is she doing with this ghost? What's gonna happen with this? Why is this important? And I just kept thinking about it. Also, the look on Jess's face when the baby, and mine as well, when the baby stood up and just said, I'm a little baby. I think Matt had said that's normally, or Jason, one of you said that it's normally the first thing that people tend to run, and so
it's the recommended first threat.
Yeah, and so us running it like 3 in, it just has such a different vibe to it for that being the thing that truly terrifies.
I think if we'd run the St. James's Street ghost first, we'd have been like, none of these other threats. Nah, we can deal with all of this. This is fine. This is all right. But knowing that was like, for some reason, we latched onto that as the worst thing possible, and it kept fucking recurring. Was a lovely thing just to hang over us. A true terror.
You know, we didn't have that much talk going back to the previous question about like what was going to happen in backstories, there was a lot of talk about Haunted Baby in the Discord
so
chat. It
much
was
talk about
always spoke about was
Old Baby
Haunted
was
Baby.
the big fear in the Discord.
Coming up all the time.
Again, it's that sort of thing where you had to be there when you're retelling it to people, and they're like, "What are you talking about?" It's like, no, you don't understand. There's a baby, and it keeps coming back of some sort.
I think on my local recording at some point, if the mic is as sensitive as I'm hoping it was at the time, you can hear me run into the other room and scream to my partner Paul, "The old baby's back!" And it's not. So I can't remember which episode it's on, but it might have been the finale actually. But if I find it, I'll send it. But
That's
I
amazing.
thought that was
Mm-hmm. Let's circle back. There's another question I got sent in, which I think is an interesting one for everyone. Is that how much of you do we actually see in the characters and the NPCs? Now, I know this is going to be incredibly meta and deep, and maybe we'll find some things out about ourselves at this point. But yeah, how much of yourself did you put into your character whilst playing this series?
Well, I look a lot like Haskell. Yeah, but that's sorry.
Sorry, Haskell's 6'3", actually.
I don't have any of the virtues of Haskell, but my answer to this question is going to come in the form of a confession, everybody. And I'm going to confess something that I don't know if anyone noticed, and if you did, congratulations. If you didn't, then you're actually a good person who's paying attention to more important things. But I kind of played Haskell with a little bit of spice on it, because I kind of wanted to do something, and this is the most Matt Risby thing ever, because it's going to sound clever on its face, but it's incredibly tiresome and stupid. But what I knew Haskell from the beginning was going to be a thief, and I knew that all the elements of his personality and everything about him is taken from somewhere else, and I wanted to kind of investigate that on a meta-textual level. So most of his dialogue are snippets from films and songs and television shows, and I don't know if anyone picked them out.
Bloody
there
hell.
were some really obvious ones, but yeah, they were. And I put some in there to entertain you, Fiona. I put "Which one of you ladies wants to dance" is a line from Black Books. I thought was pretty funny. And yeah, we had He Had It Coming, We All Have It Coming from Unforgiven, and there was like a line from a Last Shadow Puppet song. There's a line from Widnail and I in there if you can find it. There was very nearly a Kendrick Lamar lyric in there, but I bottled it at the last minute. But if you're talking about what of me is in Haskell, it's being able to recall bits of pop culture at very short notice. But I felt like it worked on a level. I wanted him to feel like this composite, but I kind of wanted a way to represent that in play, on a kind of a higher level, as it were. So there you go. Sounds clever, but actually tiresome.
Well, and like I'll say, like from the sort of like game design perspective, the Factotum is always our way into the story, right? Like the Factotum is always like the stand-in character. Even in games that don't have the Factotum, the side characters who are like very mundane are our way into the story, right? And so there's something interesting about you like using like kind of modern day pop culture references in this character, to sort of like just to kind of like echo that idea, right? That like they are the vessel, right? In some sense, right? Like they are the ones who we kind of are entree into the world, you know, because of their apparent mundanity.
I remember, I think I called out "Which of you ladies wants to dance" as a star because I recognized that one from Black Books, but I didn't pick up everything you were saying was from something, so that's delightful. That's a delightful thing to learn. For me and Cecelie, obviously I am the most beautiful woman in the world and everyone worships me, so that's taken from reality. But no, I think we all like in some way put something of our characters, whether it's our personalities or whether it's something about like our experiences, like with, you know, the pop culture references and stuff. Like for me, I really wanted to like kind of explore objectification. I don't know how much that came across. Hopefully it did. I think as women, especially women of color, we grow up experiencing objectification. And I kind of wanted to explore that with Cecelie, with this concept of this character who's like so beautiful that everyone just loves her. And how can you love someone just from looking at them? By projecting what you want them to be onto. And I think every character, every NPC, even Dr. Mortimer to an extent, we saw that like projected what they wanted Cecelie to be, and she hated that so much that she became more and more vicious and walled off from everybody. And I really want to just kind of play with that idea of like, what happens to somebody who is so objectified, who is treated as a thing rather than a person? They become less human and they start treating everyone else like a thing. That was kind of what I wanted to do with that, kind of just playing with that idea of like, when you are as stunningly beautiful as me, how hard it is to move through the world. but you know, I wanted to play with that little bit of an experience of growing up as somebody who has experience like being exotified or treated differently because of my looks, whether that's like, you know, a positive or a negative. So I think that was kind of the thing that inspired Cecelie a bit in the way I played her. I like to think I'm a bit nicer than her though.
I will say you did a great job of that, and I love that you kind of picked up on those themes of the playbook, because one of the things that is not an accident at all in the playbook is the fact that half of the undeniable story is told through an object, right? Like there's an object. Well, in your case, it was not an object, but the sort of default thing is it's a painting or a statue or whatever, right? And so it's like just this object that is the character, right? Like there's something. Yeah, it was really intentional design choice, and so I love that you kind of took that, made it your own, and kind of twisted it around too. So it's great.
I think with Phoebe, I gave her little connections to me. Like I made her mother from the Caribbean. I'm from the Caribbean, and also I made her just be very irritated because she's constantly tired. But it's sort of just the feeling of constant demand from these things that people aren't really seeing that she has to deal with herself. And I made it very physical in terms of like the chronic pain that she has, but it's just like being pulled in a lot of different directions and no one really recognizing and only really coming to you when they need something from you. I think was something I was kind of exploring a little bit with her. But yeah, mostly just the tiredness. Mostly just the tiredness. I just took that and ramped it up to 11.
So Mortimer, I sort of invested a couple of little pieces of myself in, definitely. Letting go of God is a big one. So like I grew up in a fairly sort of strict household, and we did have a fair sort of like injection of religion into that sort of lifestyle. And it was only really when we got a little older that we pretty much our entire family sort of realized, oh no, this is, you know, we don't really take it sort of seriously, you know. So the element of atheism that she dealt with as God being completely missing, with there being incongruencies in the world and what the Bible teaches and things like that, I was really invested in bringing to life as what is life if not what religion teaches us it is, and what in Victorian era England it was very much seen as, you know, this medicine and the art of saving a life was, and science in general, was at odds with that religious statement. So I found it really interesting to sort of skirt that line, but then also acting and being a woman in a man's world, and going toe to toe with men. It's a big old sort of thing that sits in the back of my head as, you know, femme presenting as I generally am. Mortimer more than once just wouldn't adhere to those norms of the time. It wasn't dresses, it was suits. It was I think it was sitting in the salon with Pettigrew and trying her best to sort of talk man to man. It's very much how she felt. but still holding on to that femininity and that element of everything. And then also coming to terms with like, I'm never going to have kids. It's not, I'm very open about it. I don't mind it. Playing a character that is the mother, and then what that motherhood could be or would be to something that was conceived as an abomination. What does it all look like? I found it a really fun character to invest a lot of elements of me in, and bring to life. I really thought that it combined a lot of different and connected elements. I was really, really happy with how she turned out and what she was, and how conflicted and terrible and weird. But it just, all of it sort of seemed to flow with all those different elements of me, and I could really see myself in her a bit with regards to that. But yeah, I generally tend to faint at like dismembered body parts in general. Blood, I'm really bad at. So some of those descriptions, I was like, oh wow, I'm really getting into it. So that was fun. But everything else, it's amazing how this game allows you to explore such horrendous parts of like not just like your psyche, but like what you are able to bring to a table and lay out and have other people add in and then go, oh, it's so much worse than I thought. So that again is a lovely safe way to explore that part of everything. So I really enjoyed that. But yeah, Mortimer, very much a part of me.
Just to coded that, but I've never played an explicitly queer character before, but it just kind of felt, and I hadn't started in any way thinking about that with Haskell, and it wasn't until the second mask where we're on the rooftops in the Mediterranean that it just felt like it seemed to work in the moment. And because there's an element in the playbook of the Factotum where there's this kind of like unrequited kind of longing, and it's kind of directed towards the employer. Well, it's explicitly directed towards the employer in the dorm moves, and I kind of wasn't actually very interested in exploring that. And when Mortimer and Haskell started interacting, it didn't just feel at all anything like it was something that I wanted to get into. So, but I really wanted to keep that part of the playbook in and I just kind of thought, well, I'll explore it through the masks, and it just seemed to kind of work and just kind of slide into place. So yeah, there you go. First for me.
Yeah, I'll just throw in that like every playbook that I've written, at least for the game, I haven't written all of them, but I've written many of them. They all have like a little bit of me in them, right? Like that's just unavoidably the case whenever you write a game, especially one that deals with such like emotional content, right? The vessel, you know, I'm my heart is always with the monster fuckers. There's just no way around it. And, and like I'm here with that's where my sympathies lie. I am here for the monster fuckers. You know, the undeniable is basically every problematic twink I've ever like been involved with in my adulthood.
Thank you.
You know, but even like what kind of like Matt was just saying, like there's an element of like, you know, in the Factotum, there's this element of like, you know, me being a gay man of a certain age, you know, there is this like element of like, you know, unrequited, you know, love and longing, right? That I would have felt, especially when I was much younger, you know. The most personal playbook by far is the mother, though, right? Like that's the one that the mother and the orphan together, it's so personal and in different ways. Like on the one hand, I think the mother playbook has something really interesting to say about gender and the fact that it's called the mother, but you can be a male character who's a mother. There's a certain gender thing going on there. In addition to the fact that Dr. Frankenstein in pop culture is always portrayed in a very like kind of femme way usually, but even more so, more importantly, I guess, and not to bring the tone of the conversation down, but like I have a very, very like bad relationship with my mother, right? Like it's really estranged and bad. And like there's something like when I wrote the orphan playbook, especially, there's something like really like it's me like kind of critiquing our relationship, right? Like it's mothers and sons, it's mothers and kids, it's being a disappointment, it's wanting too much for your child or wanting something that your child is not ever going to be. It's that kind of thing, right? And so but also like, but there's also an element of like, it's not just like me being like pissed at my mother. It's like, it's also like, you know, there's a certain aspect of like with time and age, like looking back on like, okay, well, I can at least see her perspective in these ways, right? And so you build that into the playbook as well. And so yeah, that there's a little bit of me in all of them, but like especially the mother. That's the one that like that is the I had like an idea in mind and an emotion at play when I was writing those. So, yeah, the mother and the orphan. Yeah.
Amazing. Oh, thank you for sharing.
It feels to me that this game is so inherently, like intrinsically queer in every aspect, that it's kind of feels impossible to play one of these playbooks with truth and not have your character come out queer. You know, it's about people existing outside of expectations, outside of societal norms, and suffering for it and trying to find a way to thrive and not always succeeding. And that's like a really beautiful and like hard look at queerness that I just really adored playing with throughout. So yeah, it's nice to hear you say, Jason, explicitly like that is something that was so much of yourself was going into it, because like I felt it, you know. I mean, all of my characters are queer because I'm incapable of playing a street person. It just doesn't come off when I try. But like with this game, like the queerness is suffused into the worldview of the game in a way that I really love.
Well, and like my approach to this, I think all of my games have queer elements, right? Like, but or they have like a particular, not I want to say a message, but they have like different ideas and themes I'm interested in. But I'm always really, really keen on not putting it on the label. You know, like I find that so lazy and uninteresting when, you know, I much prefer we discover it this way, right? Like we play and we're like, oh, I can kind of see how this stuff was coming out, and that's much more satisfying to me, right?
It to me, I think that, like, not to go completely off topic, but like the idea of like queer games have to be about who's smooching who. Like, no, queerness is like an experience that goes far beyond.
It can be
like,
messy,
that.
right? Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Like these, I mean, even these characters who a lot of them are very queer coded, they're not good people, you know. Like
Let us be
there's that.
problematic.
Right? Yeah, yeah.
You can be
Fuck
gay
off.
and bad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's 2025. You can be bad and a gay and a fuck up, and it's okay. Damn it.
I think with Phoebe's so-called straight relationship, it's funny because Phoebe, it's part of why I had the doppelganger be Franklin, someone who's technically appears as the opposite gender. Phoebe, in a way, like the discomfort that she has in her skin comes from a few places. It's not just the spirits that are constantly pushing and tugging at her. It's a few different things, and I kind of wanted to have Franklin there as like, she looks like this, but she didn't have to look. She didn't have to be this.
I picked up on that right
is-
away, and it was
yeah.
confirmed when the Franklin thing confirmed it. I was like, oh, okay, this is where Wren's going with this for sure now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why Cecelie said I like the name you picked to Franklin. Like, it came across immediately. It was a beautiful exploration of that. I loved it, that moment with Franklin.
All right, to talk about another thing, which I think I know, obviously, Jason, you've run so much of the Between, and all of us here, as Ren has put it, the spooky game. I think we're all into horror, certainly, and so I would love to know when you're playing or facilitating a game such as the Between, how do we bring that atmosphere? Of scary or horror or dread. I think dread is the bigger thing here, to the table. Like, is there anything that you folks think about, or be like, or just is it just, what do we think about when we're trying to create this atmosphere together at the table when we're doing a session of the Between?
Don't rush.
Never play it like it's scary.
That was my answer too. that was my answer. Like, I think the key to making horror land at the role-playing game table is to convey it in a way that's quite deadpan, I guess. Like you just say the words and trust that everyone will fill in the details, the negative space, right? Like horror as a genre, especially in the role-playing game context, is a negative space genre, right? Like the scary thing is the thing we don't know or that we don't see, right? And so yeah, I agree with that completely. Like, don't play it like don't do Vincent Price, you know, unless there's one little caveat there where I'll put, unless you are the keeper who loves to indulge in disgusting mouth noises and weird scratching ghoul sounds and everything like that, then go for it. But yeah.
No, I agree with you there, because one of the scariest scenes I think we did when we were describing the ballroom of Hargrave House was when we didn't describe what actually happened in the
Yes.
Fae delegation, and everyone knew something, but we didn't know the full story. And that was terrifying as a player, trying to figure out what the next step is.
I'm still bothered by the fact that we don't know what the ghost was, right? Like,
Yeah,
we never
right?
learned what the St. James's Street ghost's deal was, right? And that still kind of lingers a little bit. It's like I kind of want to know, and like what was going on there, and we'll never know. So yeah.
No, but I think if you have players that you know are going to be invested in what you're saying, because it's quite possibly you're delivering it as best as you can, you're putting in 110, and then people might just not be with you in the story. So I think in order to deliver something, you need people who are going to be in it with you and are willing to be in it with you, which is, I think, why it's nice to just like set up beforehand, like, this is a story that we're going to be telling, and we kind of all need to be on the same page with. We can't be having a silly, goofy time all the time. Sometimes it's fine to break the tension when there's an old baby, but otherwise we kind of need to like bring the atmosphere to the table as well, not just the GM doing all of it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I haven't played a lot of horror games, and I think, Matt, when you first approached me if you want to be in this, I was a bit like, oh, I don't know, I'm not sure, I haven't done a lot of horror, and I was a bit unsure if it was for me, or if I would be able to do it well. But I think what Wren says is really true, that like it's about taking cues from everybody else around the table and not just expecting the GM to make it scary while you just like wacka do goofs. Or like it takes everyone having trust in each other and like buying in to the tone, and carrying it forward. And then if you trust your other players, including the GM, all the players, to do that, then I think it works.
Yeah, and I think that works obviously with all your games, Jason. You have that structure. You go through this, that first session. We actually saw people creating characters on recording. Like obviously we did Lines and Veils and all that sort of thing. But it's just, I find that really interesting that even from the setup, it's just easy to run because that expectation is already set there. So instantly you're all hopefully are on the same page and can check back in if that tone is what we're going for and all that sort of thing. So I think it's already inbuilt into the game, which not a lot of games, even ones that have been recently released, really talk about. Like, I mean, we've mentioned session zeros and like their importance because they are important, but having it already baked into the structure of the game is like, I think that's the one thing that really helps with the table going like, okay, here's where we are. Cool. Especially with this game when we're not checking in necessarily about like what your backstory is or what this is going or anything like that. It's just we say it at the beginning and then just check in as we go,
And if I could take a moment to be catty, it's because a lot of role-playing games are written by people who don't play them very much. And so throw that out there. I think when you play a lot of role-playing games, you know what works at the table, if I do say so myself.
I love it. I love that tea.
I'll also just chime in and say that if you've listened to The Between in the YouTube format that it's currently up in, you'll know that the soundtrack that underlies and all of the night phase, dawn phase, dusk phase, transitions, everything is very thematically edited to a T. So, like, Matt, you've edited this really well. Like, it sounds fantastic because, again, you guys have put so much effort into this. And the way it's produced, we don't have to worry about all of the technical side of it because Fiona's on it constantly. If anything goes down, it's all right. Fiona's there. Mother is there to tell us that everything's gone down and isn't terrible. So this is me saying that if you're going to run an actual play of The Between, or are you thinking about it, hire a really good editor and hire a really good producer. There's two on here. Their names are Matt and Fiona. Just saying. So yeah.
All right, I'll send you an invoice, Jess, for that lovely compliment.
Yeah, custard creams in the post.
Have it for free. I don't charge.
Just quickly to kind of circle back a little and about not playing like it's scary. I just don't think of The Between as a horror game. And it's funny because when I say The Between is my favorite game, and after I made that video, everyone was like, man, you must love horror. I don't at all. I love story. And I have never played a game that delivers story better than The Between. So for me, the horror is it's the seasoning on the fries. Like that is the thing that I'm least interested in about in this game, but it's so powerfully there and
It's
tangible and you can
interesting.
get into
Yeah,
it.
that's really interesting.
But
Yeah.
like I am a story guy and a character guy, and like this game just delivers it, and the horror theming to me is sort of incidental, which is why I think that I find it a bit easier to deliver the horror in a mundane way, like just matter of fact and delivering it and not playing it like it's scary, because I'm more interested in what's going on with the characters and not the kind of ghouls in the dark.
So I'm still sticking with sort of the system of The Between, because I think this is interesting because obviously we know it obviously as a collaborative storytelling with people round the table as such, but for Jason and also Matt, who I know has facilitated a session between, someone's emailed in or written in. Do you think The Between would work well in a play-by-play forum or a play-by-email forum? And if so, what tips would you give to the keeper to help maintain that tone and atmosphere if you're not around a table where you can see people and react in real time?
This is almost certainly more Matt's wheelhouse than mine, but I will say that I'll caveat by saying that this is not the way I enjoy role-playing games. Like
Sure.
I've tried play-by-post, and I've had some interesting fun with it, but it's not my thing. And it was not written to be that thing. But I will say that I think Powered by the Apocalypse games, which The Between is a derivative of ultimately, I think such games are actually better for play-by-post type situations where there's like asynchronous play going on. I think they're better than like crunchier games, precisely because so much fiction is handled at a higher level. Like you don't go to the dice, like you do a lot of scene before you go to the dice, right? And so you don't have to wait for someone to to roll their next attack roll or whatever. That said, I can't really speak to it. It's not really my thing. I'm curious what Matt has to say.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, this is something I get asked all the time. Like, will this game work solo? And I've had people in my comments talk about how they've made The Between work solo, and more power to them because that seems like a lot of work. What I would say is that, like, if you can make it work, then great. And I think that there's probably something in The Between as like an epistolary game, like Dead Letter Society, which is about kind of letter writing, and because Dracula is Dracula, right? There's something there, but then that's not The Between. That's a little offshoot of it. Maybe if you can do it, and if you've got the time and energy to put into it, then great. Because I think one thing I've realized doing this channel is that I started a solo channel because it was lockdown and I couldn't play with anyone, right? And my friends are unreliable, and I could wrangle myself into a once a weekly session. But like, I realized over time that a lot of people play solo for very different reasons. They like might even be too anxious to be in a room with another person. So like, if you can put the work in to make something like this work as play by post, then yeah, like I say, more power to you. But like Jason, that's not how I'd like to play the game. You'd miss so much of what makes The Between magic. I think I was actually worried about playing it online because I've only played it around a table, where like the vulnerable scenes hit in a very different way. It's not better or worse either way. It's just very different. Ultimately it didn't matter between the two, even though there was the kind of slight differences. But I think there'd be too much difference in a kind of a play-by-post or play-by-email format, I think.
Incidentally.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was just going to... Incidentally, Matt, there was a question about whether your channel's going to go back to solo role-playing games at some point.
Look, I'm being indulgent. Okay. Indulge me.
That was it. Please, Jason.
Well, I was just going to say, I do think if you were going to attempt this, like a solo thing, you are at least supported in the sense that all the scenarios are not really like, they're not like dense prose. They're just like elements, which I have to imagine is helpful for creating something like that. All that said, as much as I want your money and I want you to buy my game, there are so many good games out there already. Like, I don't think you necessarily have to fit a square peg into a round hole here, right? There's loads of other Gothic style games that you can play a solo game.
I will heartily disagree. You should buy The Between. You should buy The Between.
You definitely should
run it for the people that you love.
Right.
Do that. Definitely do that.
All right, Jason, you also now have to send an invoice to Jess because, I think I'll quickly comment on it because I do think there are elements of the between, such as the unseen, and all that something that could work really well by play by post or play by forum. But I think, as we've all sort of come to realize, that's you're not playing the between. The between is a certain structure, and it does require you to be playing together at the same time, I think. And yeah, there are plenty of other games that do that asynchronous way through it. But I think something like with maybe again, if there's a card from Brindlewood Bay, was it source document that's hanging around somewhere, maybe you could take certain parts of it and do your own thing, and maybe adapt it for the format that you would like to play. But I agree.
We have a solo play Brindlewood Bay thing coming out, so like it's not impossible. It's just we've really had to like
think about it,
rework our brains for it. Yeah, it was tricky.
Yeah. For sure. But I think, I guess what we're saying is that you either the payoff is that you play by yourself but don't get the between experience, or you have to go out and find friends or force them into the room with you, which is also a privilege in itself, and some resources as well. So go find friends and make them suffer through the between, I think. Just to go on a little bit, another question for Jason regarding the preview version. So the preview version of the Between, along with some 4 supplements, they're up on Drive-Thru-RPG. And someone was wondering, if you buying the various bits and pieces now, will they still work with the release edition that's coming out later this year?
I have a great answer for this because they're all free, so there's no reason not to go get them. They're strictly speaking, they're pay what you want on Drive-Thru, but you don't have to pay for anything because like we gave it all away to our backers. So like you can just like go to Drive-Thru-RPG, get the full game, not the version we played here, but it's very close. It's like 90% of what we did here. That's not quite right, maybe like 80. Get the full game, get the 4 supplements. If you want to kick over a couple dollars, we love that, but you don't have to. And everything, all of that stuff is being adapted for the new edition. So I guess strictly speaking, no, it's not going to work, but it also doesn't matter because it didn't cost you anything. So and it's very playable still, right? Like there's nothing. The way we do things in the Gauntlet is we release a full game digitally, and then we revise it for a couple of years, and then we do the physical edition. That's just our pattern. And so the Between, as it exists on Drive-Thru-RPG, is like 90% of my vision for the game. This new edition is like the 100% vision.
I've got my penultimate question for you all, which we might have already talked about a little bit, but I'll throw it out to you. If someone's obviously watching this, enjoying it, has managed to break through and got friends in the room or around the virtual table and they're going to play the Between, and we're about to pick playbooks or sort out masterminds, I guess what's your big tip for somebody who is going to either play your playbook or even about to run a session of the Between as with the mastermind?
While everyone's thinking, I'll speak for the keeper. Follow the session 1 procedure in the back of the book exactly as written. That is written a certain way, and it is scripted. Do it exactly as it says. Read it exactly as it says, and you will and set yourself up to have what you want to do in all of my games. You want to set yourself up for a really good session 2, right? Session 1 is all about like just learning the basics of the game. So do your session 1 procedure. Do a few die rolls, present the mystery, just learn how to play the basics, and then set yourself up nicely for session 2. And part of setting yourself up nicely for session 2 is making sure you do the mastermind stinger at the end of session 1. That's really, really key. It is the thing that hooks the players, that makes them want to come back and really get into it. And then session 2 is when the game unfurls itself fully to you. So that's my advice.
Yeah, I think I would say don't expect that the things you say are going to sound similar to anything that any of us said. Don't set preset expectations that your game is going to go how this game went. It's really not. In order to play the vessel, I would say I came into this still thinking of something very structured because I didn't know what I was doing. So I was still thinking of like, oh, this is like a necromancy spell casty kind of thing, and still thinking in terms of like spells and like and it's like it's more narrative. The sky is really the limit with what you can do with regards to rituals and things like that. You don't have to, you can confine them as much as you want if that's what your character is thinking about, or you can make them as big as you want. I had Phoebe kind of grow to making her things bigger and bigger and bigger and more obvious, because that's just how she was going. She didn't want to be seen, and then it didn't really matter anymore. So I would say, yeah, don't constrain yourself in thinking of like what you can do. Think about what you can't do, and it's not a lot. There's not a lot that you can't.
Yeah, to echo that, like, there's not really any kind of story you can't tell with any playbook. And my exhibit A for that is that, like, I ran a campaign of this. We had the exact same playbooks except the vessel. We had an American instead. And the 3 playbooks that we do share, wildly different, completely different. The Undeniable was a vampire. The mother hated blood and didn't ever want to steal any body parts at all. And the Factotum was a psychopath. So it's like, it's completely up to you what you want to do with the character. Don't feel like you are in any way constrained or that the playbooks are prescriptive, which was my first mistake when I read The Between, because I was like, oh man, there's not much wiggle room here. And then I was like, I get it now. Once you play it through, you kind of realize
They're deep, not wide, right?
I'd say for the mother, and generally, if you're a fan of Penny Dreadful and if you love the TV series, use it not as a foundation. Use it as a reference at best. Some of the best bits of our game, I think, echo the melodrama and the tragedy that happen in that honestly iconic TV series. And if you haven't watched it, I just recommend it before going into the game to give yourself a sort of level of expectation of narrative story, that sense of horror, slow build and tension. Like, it's what we built here mimics it so very well in like one of the seasons. And again, as it's one of my favorite sort of series of all time, of course this is very much my wheelhouse. But as the mother is a very selfish character. They act very well in their own self-interests. When playing the mother, if you're looking to get them sweet experience points, if you're looking to like really sort of like push it to the very edge of like its utility, focus on what the mother wants, which is to collect the body parts, to not care about what really society thinks, and to just go for it. You will, like, again, there were so many opportunities to collect body parts when no one was looking, really, and it wasn't necessarily a move. So again, if you've got a rule of cool GM like Jason Cordova, I'm just saying, you're able to really stack the mother up quite quickly. And then that's like a min-max mind. But generally, if you want to look at narratively exploring what it is, what the concept of life is, and have a just a play about with it, it's a really good playbook. So be selfish with it. Really be selfish with it. And then let all of the other problems that are happening around Hargrave House be everyone else's problem. Haskell, the factotum. Get a factotum. Get a factotum. That's my tip. My tip is get a factotum.
Haskell has it in hand.
Exactly. If there's a child that needs killing, the factotum will be on hand. It's all good.
Re Penny Dreadful real quick. I love Penny Dreadful. Obviously, it's a great show. You just got to watch the first 2 episodes of season 1. Like the entire game is contained in the first 2 episodes. So you watch those 2 and you're good to go.
I will argue that if you get to the scenes with the Cutwife and Patti LuPone as the Cutwife, like that's
that's for the vessel especially, right? That
for
whole,
the
like,
vessel especially.
Oh, I've never seen it, but I'm gonna go watch the first 2 episodes now.
The second episode. The second episode has this seance scene, which I think it's one of the best things ever put to film. It's incredible. Like, you will just be watching it like, this is amazing. Yeah. Anyway.
Eva Green does Possessed so well. It's
Unbelievable.
unparamount. Like, yeah.
Amazing. My top tip for playing the game would be listen to what everyone else is putting down, because you will have ideas and thoughts. Like when there's prompts like paint the scene or the unseen, you'll have thoughts immediately when you hear those prompts. But if you listen to what everyone else is putting down, then you can pick up on that and make something more than what your brain alone can do. And that's the beauty of collaborative role-playing games, and like the Between really gets that. So listen to what everyone else is doing, and don't be afraid to like pick and choose little bits of what they're putting down to weave into what you're doing. My tip for playing the undeniable would probably be like inherently the undeniable sins. Like she, he, they have this reflection, this masterwork, and they do bad things, and it changes the masterwork. So going in, you're going to do bad things. Know why. Like, I suggest know why they do bad things, and it doesn't have to be the same reason Cecelie does. Find your own reason why your undeniable does bad things, and you don't have to write out your whole backstory. I certainly didn't for the Janice Mask. I just had a sentence for each of what the rough vibe was, and I just improv'd it. But if you're somebody who likes to write it out, but listen to what everyone else is putting down, and if someone gives you an idea, be willing to change. I think my tip is just know why, what is the core thing, the reason they are doing the bad things. And if you have that, then you have like something to jump off with your role play, because you want to be doing those bad things, so you get the scars in your reflection and you change and grow as a character. That would be my tip.
Yes, the Between, the ultimate yes and game, I think. Thank you, everyone, for doing this. We have one final question, which I've left till last. But I just want to say thanks to everyone who's been watching and like been sending stuff in and seeing the support. It's really lovely to see that as well. The final question is there any chance of seeing a sequel when the new version is released proper, friends?
Yeah, fine, we'll do it.
Oh no!
Oh
no.
yeah. If
Well,
we
I have
have,
to do this
if we
again.
have to, yeah. If we have to get together and just like,
Oh, wouldn't that be
play this-
terrible?
Yeah, I mean,
Oh my god.
I mean,
Play by post.
play Dagger Heart,
Force
I
us
suppose.
back together. Oh, we're getting personal.
Oh, no!
And they're flanking
thought I
bonuses
got
in
shot
the
of
new
all of
edition.
Yeah.
I would
well,
love to say yes. If there is the opportunity, it doesn't have to be an official invitation. I just like my yes to be out there. I'm not saying it's like changed me or anything, but there's a small shrine to Mortimer just behind me. Those are her glasses and all of my notes. I'm not saying it's one of my favorite things that I've ever done, but I am saying that this is here. So yeah, maybe.
I'm not saying I've chosen the outfit that I would wear if there was a season 2 or anything. It's this, obviously.
Yeah, we are all disc Cordova in season 2 of The Between.
What I think the more interesting question is, particularly for Matt and Jess, like, what are the new playbooks you're going to be playing, right? Because the Factotum is out. That's something that might have been clear from the episodes, but the Factotum retires when the mother retires. Like, they have no control over that.
Did the mother retire? Because nobody ever found her body.
True. Yes. So who knows? Yeah. I mean, there's Etienne. Maybe Etienne grows up.
Maybe Etienne learns how to
Maybe he
stop
can
gnawing
speak.
the desk.
Matt as Etienne, let's go. Yep.
hard fucking pass.
Oh, I would kill to see you in a pair of point shoes.
What I would say is that like there are some pretty great playbooks left over from the core 6 that we didn't touch. There's also some
About 10 more coming.
expanded ones that already existed in the older version, and ones that we haven't seen anything of yet. So like the world is our lobster as far as that's concerned.
Lobster?
Lobster?
In The Between, it's lobster and not oyster. Yeah.
In the between, it's lobster, and we don't question it.
Sorry, that was a
I'm
pop reference that was
see-
clearly too old for you guys. Sorry.
The playbook I can't wait to see and play. It's not one that I wrote, which is so I'm happy to say I'm happy to see it and play. Is the Underground, which is the it's always a girl or a young woman, and they are essentially an Alice in Wonderland type character.
Yes.
But did they really go to another place, or are they crazy? Like that's yeah. And it's a playbook all about like shaking off the shackles of expectation of Victorian womanhood, right?
Oh, be still my beating heart.
Yeah.
Please, please, a season 2.
They come with their own mastermind, which is amazing.
Oh my god, please!
Yes, they come with their own mastermind who, I don't know if it's not really spoiling it because it's out there on the backer kit page, but their mastermind is like is essentially like the Queen of Hearts, right?
Oh,
Well.
But a vampire. Vampire Queen of Hearts.
I
All right.
volunteer.
We all volunteer as tribute to be. Thank you, friends, so much. Thank you for watching this talk back. Yeah, if you've really enjoyed our series of The Between, please consider sharing it with people. Obviously, share love. There's obviously the Gauntlet Discord as well. Be like, hey, these guys were pretty great. We want more of their stuff. It's all that word of mouth is important. And also, if you've really enjoyed this, go check out The Between. Go, pre-order or get your copy. As we said, there's that sort of preview thing. So if you're not entirely sure, go pay what you want and stick around and get the actual copy, because that would be really, really cool of you. All right, friends of Hargrave House, that's the dinner bell. We have to go for dinner now. Thank you so much, and we'll wave off goodbye whilst I find the end recording button. Goodbye for now, friends.